Look what just arrived! The new Tamiya Official Speed Guide 2024 to 2025 edition. I am so happy this arrived in the mail today. So here is the new Speed Guide 2024 to 2025 edition. And I don't read Japanese, but we're going to look through every page, see what's in store for us. A lot of cool stuff that we can look at and deduce without the knowledge of Japanese as a language. And if you really wanted to find out what a particular page means, you can simply place the image into something like Google Translate, and you can then get all the details. So that's what I'm here for, to show you every page. And so you can take what you need, send it through Google Translate, and yeah, just translate it to English if you like, or whatever language you prefer. So the new prize, I called it, the surprise inside the book this time around, is this parts tray right here. Yeah, and I think it's probably a cardboard parts tray, if I'm not mistaken. It's probably like made of cardstock material, so it's on the cheaper side, right? So you're not going to get like a plastic item, I don't think. So we're gonna find out what's inside. So here, this looks like it looks like one of the newer kits, but it's actually not. I have the Hurricane Sonic. This is the Sonic Saber and the Magnum Saber. And these look like two kits that, I don't know, I haven't not seen these in a while, so maybe these are newer. The newest kit that I recently built was, or one of the newest kits, was this thing called the Hurricane Sonic. And it is a polycarbonate body version of the familiar Hurricane Sonic car. And it's an AR chassis. It's got these yellow spiral spoke wheels. I think the tires they might be super hard. They're probably maybe not. I don't know, but it's pretty fast. It's a pretty fast car. And yeah, it's very lightweight. Very lightweight AR chassis. Nothing special about the chassis itself. It's just that it's got a polycarbonate shell about it. But a lot of people like these spiral spoke wheels. Pretty cool. So I'll just set this aside for the moment and we'll take a look at the book. So this arrived in the mail today. It is Wednesday, July 3, and I just received this today. Let's take a look inside. So let's turn the page. And we see inside here, Get Navy always has ads in all of their speed guides, and here's the special parts tray, and it is indeed cardstock in here. It looks like there's something else in there too. I think it's double-sided tape, and that's used to put together this box, which stays open and in one place. So pretty cool. This is the free item inside the book. Every one of these speed guides includes some sort of thing, right? Like, not everyone. I can't say that the last few issues had something special inside it, but this one does. Usually it's the smaller digests that you receive, the like plastic measurement guides or things like that. So that's pretty cool. So here, instructions for putting together this, and just as I had guessed, this is in fact double-sided tape right here. You put together the box, and yeah, pretty cool. Inside here, a whole bunch of table of contents, stuff that I cannot read, but that's okay. We can read the English parts. They put some English titles in here too, such as How to Build MS Flexible Chassis. Cool. And Mini 4-Wheel Drive World Challenge. Cool. Okay, let's turn the page and let's see more of what's in here. So page 4. Ooh, look at this. The new Japan Cup layout. So if you've taken a look at the videos of the Japan Cup recently, you will see, yes, you will see this track in all its glory, and you'll see all of these racers racing on this particular track. It's pretty darn cool. And if you've gone to Side Bite in Hamilton, New Jersey, it's near Trenton, you will see a 5-lane wooden track that's similar in style to this. It might not have this kind of loop, but it does have its own version of a rainbow lane changer, and it is just as fantastic as this rainbow lane changer here. So check out Side Bite in Hamilton, New Jersey if you haven't done so already. It is the East Coast version of DXN. Pretty cool. And the owner of that store is really cool. His name's Latif. And yeah, there's a track fee if you want to race on the racetrack for the day. It's a $10 track fee. And then there are racing events where you can enter these events, and it's just $5 per car for entry, and that's pretty darn cool. And my race, the Liberty Cup Summer Cup, is coming up in July 21st. July 21st is a Sunday, and that is my Liberty Cup Summer Cup. Yes, and there's going to be box stock tune class and open class races that day. Yes, racing starts at, I think it starts at 12 or 1 o'clock. So the store opens at 12, and there's going to be some practice time, and then we'll start the races. Pretty darn cool. So everybody, come one, come all, have a good time, race against a lot of familiar faces in the Mini 4-Wheel Drive community. very, very cool. And there's going to be lots of great prizes. There's going to be like bragging rights, definitely. Like who's going to win this Liberty Cup race? Yeah, pretty darn cool. Yeah, you'll get the best from area folks like Hobbytown, AAA. You'll get to see some folks probably from the Connecticut, upstate New York area, down in Maryland. Lots of cool people are going to be entering this race. Pretty darn cool. So let's turn the page. Whoa, look at this great Tatsudoshi AR Circuit 2024. So this is a more detailed, in-depth look at what's going on in this new Japan Cup circuit. Pretty darn cool. And so it's going on and telling you about all the various weirdnesses, the crazy things that are happening in the track, things that you may not have considered before. And we have out there on YouTube a fair number of racers who just go about, like they analyze every track to death, and they build a car specifically for that track. And some of the cool things I've seen to deal with some of the issues involved in a track, I've seen people use things like a side brake, for example, a side brake like this. And this side brake helps them with a lot of the taller edges of the track in the Japan Cup. Pretty darn cool. Of course, if you use a side brake, then you got to be a little cautious because that can slow your car down overall, but it will definitely help you when it comes time to turning and lane changers and things like that. And I don't think 5-lane tracks, the Rainbow Lane Changer has it's not such a big issue lane changing in a 5-lane track. It definitely is a big issue lane changing in a 3-lane track, but it's nice to know that a lot of people out there are in fact considering 5-lane lane changers and trying to figure out how to successfully negotiate a sharp rainbow lane changer such as this. As you see here, it's got a higher, yeah, as you see here, the wall is higher, and so the side brake really helps on this wall here. Now, one thing I don't seem to understand is some of the designs I've seen, the side brake is a little higher than the regulation box. I don't know if this is like a special Japan Cup exemption, I'm not sure, but one racer in particular, he has like a side brake that's a little higher than it should be, and I actually commented on it. He didn't respond yet, but yeah, that's one thing that I was like questioning. So yeah, as you learn more and more about details and regulations, you'll basically question lots of things in races. Yeah. So here we have the new 2024 versions of Hyper Dash motors. Pretty cool. We have here the new ignition. Yes, this is the special green fluorescent yellow version of the ignition, the Japan Cup 2024 version, MA chassis. We have here the 2024 versions of torque-tuned motors, yes, for single and double shaft cars. Very, very cool. So, more descriptions of all the weirdnesses that happen on this track here. Lots of crazy things on here that a lot of racers from the old era will not have considered. A lot of people from the old guard, they know a lot of stuff about 3-lane tracks, but the new 5-lane tracks are a different animal, so there are different things to consider. However, that's not to say that your experience doesn't carry over, so definitely if you've got a lot of experience with racing on the old 3-lane tracks, you'll definitely be like well prepared and ready for a lot of the challenges on the 5 lanes. So here, more description of this nutty rainbow lane changer here. This is a very sharp kind of rainbow lane changer. It's kind of like really, it's kind of scaring me a little bit because of the way that they're describing it, and I know that some cars will just blow through this corner really hard. And as you see here, this looks to me like it's a description of like what can possibly go wrong here and where there's that sticking point where there is something that can go wrong. It's kind of describing to you right here, I'll bet, like what's happening. And you want to really basically move along smoothly along this track. You don't want to kind of drop off and then go, or maybe you do, I don't know. It's like, this is one of those things where it's nice to have a translation of what's going on here. I'm just assuming a lot. But basically here, you'll see the car is traversing this in a proper way to get to the final destination, which is the end of the lane changer. Pretty cool. So here, some example cars. I don't know if these are ones that successfully negotiated this particular lane changer, but it's interesting to see these different designs. This looks like a very standard design here, this Neo VQS right here. A lot of people love the Neo VQS. Yes, if you've purchased the advanced pack, that gives you some idea of how to build a proper Tune class car. And then basically following all of the instructions, building your Tune class car there, you've got a good foundation, a good start for how you want to upgrade your Tune class car. So don't expect to just pay $35 for the Neo Advanced pack. That's actually not a Tune class car. They give you a light dash motor in there. And so with the light dash motor, you cannot enter Tune class category events. You have to dumb it down to something like an atomic tuned or torque tuned, and then you can race your Neo VQS Advanced Pack car. So yeah, that's one thing to consider. But that's a good start, and once you've play tested and exhausted all of the possibilities of the Neo VQS Advanced Pack, you can then go on to these metal rollers here. You see in the front and the back, switch it up a little bit, switch where you want to place the dampers, the side dampers. You might want to add front dampers, rear dampers, things like that to try to handle different situations on a track. Yes. So here, we have here on page 10, yes, described right here. One of the English things here was Tamiya Play Model Factory Tokyo, and here it is, a description of what's inside the Play Model Factory in Tokyo. Very cool. And here we have the new car, the Cross Spear. Yes, it looks like a very cool car, and some of the features that are in it, it's a VZ chassis, and it's got this person injection molded into the canopy itself. So there's not a separate item that you have to like tape and then stick onto the battery lock and underneath the canopy. It is actually built right into the cowl. So you're going to get a very sturdy and stable play character. So that play character just stays in there. It's a part of the car. So the car is now a lot more balanced than something like an Ella glitter. Pretty darn cool. Yeah, so technically this should be more balanced than an Ella glitter, in which the Ella glitter has, you stick that or like an animal in an animal racer on that double-sided tape, and sometimes you know what can happen, everyone. You know that your animal can shift back and forth, and that's not cool. Sometimes it can detach, and sometimes that can throw off your car, throw off the balance of your car, throw off the stability of your car, and then you can lose a race with your cute animal racer. This one here, this guy is injection molded into this thing, so you're going to have a strong, sturdy, stable, solid car with this Cross Spear. And I think this answers a lot of the people's like concerns about, oh, well, I want to race an animal racer, but I don't like the instability of animal racers. Well, here, this is your answer to that. Get this car, test it out, see if this works for you. And some of the things that I know that you guys will try, because I'll try them, is removing the spoiler and removing this top canopy, because you have these loose parts attached to your cowl. That's going to affect the stability of your car. So making your car as strong, stable, sturdy, solid as possible, you want to avoid any pieces on your car that are going to jitter, that are going to shake, that are going to wiggle waggle. You don't want the wiggle waggle stuff. So just remove all the wiggle waggle stuff and you'll be good. So next page, a little description of, yes, these are Batugo Lets Go, I think the one name of one of the characters is, and here's the Sonic Saber and Magnum Saber. These are the two cars that these cartoon characters raced against. It's a pretty darn cool cartoon, everybody. You got to watch at least one or two episodes of it to understand the whole background story behind mini four-wheel drive cars. Yeah, there's actually a story behind all of these cars. I didn't actually know this for the longest time until I actually saw the cartoon, and then I was like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. And this is the reason. The cartoon is the reason why a lot of people got into mini four-wheel drive cars. Pretty darn cool. I don't know what this is saying here, but it looks to me like a very special version of one of these cars from the Let's Go series. So pretty cool. And here I offer this page to you so you can scan it yourself and you can find out what these things say. Oh, look at this, the 30th anniversary of mini four-wheel drive cars. And we've got like so many different vehicles here, probably from that Let's Go series here. Pretty cool. Yeah, and so we've got a lot of Super 2 and AR chassis cars. We've got one FMA car right there. Very, very cool. Yeah, it's so awesome. They have this range of cars here that, you know, like you could be interested in AR chassis, a Super 2 chassis, FMA chassis. You can build a car based on that chassis. You can build a car based on the style of car that you saw in the cartoon. Very, very cool. Because some of these cartoons, they have like similar names, right? Like this is Sonic Saber versus Buster Sonic versus this other Sonic and Hurricane Sonic. And I believe these two characters named their cars in such a way that like every episode there might be a different variation of a car, right? They did something to their car and then they renamed it and they have a different cowl on it. Pretty cool. And then that's the red-haired guy with the Sonic Saber series. And then you've got the blue-haired guy. I think they're brothers. And he's got the Magnum Saber series. So on this side you see the Magnum Saber, and this side you see the Sonic Saber series. Pretty darn cool. So yeah, worth a try to just watch an episode or 2 or 3 or 10 of Let's Go. Oh, so here we go. This is a more in-depth description of the new Cross Spear. Very cool. And you will see it's got a very narrow body. As you see, it's almost flush. It's almost like totally aerodynamic. Nothing here is going to, like if you were to put this through a wind tunnel, this probably do some damage, right? It'll like traverse the wind tunnel with flying colors because the wind resistance, the wind will just go right over this whole thing and just go out the other side with no issues. No hitting like something in the center, causing some sort of like air wave fluctuations. No, this is like a perfectly nice windswept design. So ergo, you would think that this would be a really fast car. And the only way to know for sure is if you build it, test it yourself and see if that's true. So very cool. And you know that cars that are built on the new VZ chassis, and it's not new anymore, it's like a 2019 invention, but it's a newer chassis. Cars that are built on the VZ chassis, especially if they're box stock, are going to be wicked fast. And yeah, I consider VZ chassis cars to be box stock killers. I consider FMA chassis cars to also be box stock killers. It all depends on the track that you're running on. Yes, pretty darn cool. And the only thing that'll keep a VZ chassis from winning is this double roller section in the rear, where on tight turns this can get caught on a track section, and then you'll just like halt, come to a screeching halt, and you might even course out. Yeah, but FMA chassis, they have their own advantages and disadvantages. The heavier weight, much better when you're jumping off of inclines. Maybe not a double incline like a camelback might be cool, but a double dragon back, not so cool. So yeah, so here are all of these cars described here. FMA chassis, very cool. VZ chassis, very cool. MA chassis, very cool. This is the new Astora, or newer Astora. Blast Arrow. Yes, lots of these MA chassis cars. MA chassis cars are a favorite amongst the Pro Series racers, especially for box stock, because they're easy to build, fun to build, and they have a lot of torque in them because of the dual shaft nature of the motors. So pretty darn cool. So you could be running a 4-to-1 gear ratio car in MA chassis form, and you could outrun a car that's 3.5-to-1 gear ratio in single shaft cars, just because of the way the car is designed with bigger wheels, let's say, like on this one. Lots of cool things, lots of cool cars with big wheels. If you get the smaller wheeled cars, they typically give you 3.5-to-1 gear ratio gears, but in larger wheeled ones, they typically give you 4-to-1, and let me tell you, the 4-to-1 gear ratio cars with the bigger wheels, they're a force to be reckoned with, especially the DCR-01. Love it or hate it, depending on how you build it, you're going to get a car that's going to really be like one of the fastest cars on the track, or unfortunately, it could also be a course-out blunder. So that's the power of the DCR-01. It's also got that very narrow body. It's got that very windswept body, just like the Cross Spear. And yeah, it's a force to be reckoned with. I have raced against many people who race DCR-01s, and let me tell you, that car is wicked fast, but it does course out a lot. So, AR chassis. Another beloved chassis. This is one of the favorite chassis of Steve from AAA Hobbies. He built this car. His AR chassis car, with all the plastic parts, runs as fast as most people's cars that have metal chassis parts. His car is wicked fast. He optimized it. It's a really fast car, and he learned secret techniques from Japan racers. He knows his stuff. He knows like some of the things that like only people of sensei knowledge knows, because he talked to a lot of people in Japan and they entrusted him with his knowledge, and he was able to optimize it so that his car was optimal, fast, and yeah, extremely competitive compared to other Tune Class cars. The other Tune Class cars, they would need like metal parts and bearings and things like that, and he's got some stuff in here like that, but he's also got the plastic parts, and his car runs just as well as metal roller cars. So very cool. Oh, this is a car I haven't seen. That's very cool. Yeah, I've not seen this one ever. Like, and maybe it's an old car, I'm not sure. But it says 2013, so it looks like it's a classic car. Maybe it reissued, yeah. So yeah, a lot of these cars with their dates on them, that's their date of issue. And so yeah, some of these are very old cars like 2006, 2007. Here we have Super 2 chassis, here we have MS chassis. You can tell which are the MS chassis cars because you have to look at the rollers, right? The rollers they include in MS chassis cars are usually these big honkin' rollers. They look like little frisbees with these 3 swirl kind of prong things. And yeah, Super 2 chassis, they give you front and back these kind of chintzy looking rollers here, and I hate the front of Super 2 chassis. I mean, it's probably more sturdy than other chassis because it's heavier in the front, but I don't know, it looks kind of like boxy to me. Blocky, boxy. I think the AR chassis looks very modernized with its windswept design. I think a lot of people might have issues with these curving out like this rather than curving away. So yeah, but you get a lot of cool designs with AR chassis, definitely. Look at this new or newer Wolf Racer right here. It's got a reinforced AR chassis right here. Reinforced red AR chassis. And bigger wheels, but it only has a 5-to-1 gear ratio. So stupidly enough, 5-to-1 gear ratio. Now, if they were to reissue this with a 4-to-1 gear ratio, now we're cooking. That would be really, really cool. But with 5-to-1, it's kind of got a serious disadvantage as a box stock car. But yeah, some of the other cars I really like this one here. This is a 4-to-1 gear ratio car, right? So compared to other animal racers, this is kind of overpowered. So if you were to compare, like if you were to race this versus any of these other animal racers, you'll probably win with this guy right here, just because it's got a 4-to-1 gear ratio with small wheels like this. Compared to other cars with 5-to-1 gear ratios, other animal racers, you'll beat it. It's pretty darn fast. So here we have more MS, and then we have the VS chassis, a classic chassis. This VS chassis came out before the VZ chassis. So you can say that the VS is the precursor to the VZ chassis, which it is, and you'll see a lot of the things that are on the VS chassis were like, okay, so let's improve upon something on the VS chassis and put it in the VZ chassis. So that's what they kind of did. They took the VS chassis and they looked at how they could improve it, and then that kind of morphed into the VZ chassis. Pretty darn cool. But the VS chassis, a lot of people know that even though it's an older chassis, it happens to be a little sturdier in certain places than a VZ chassis. So the front end, a lot more sturdy than the front end of a VZ chassis. So that's something that can be taken advantage of. If you're like an open class racer and you know how to use tools, then you could make a VS chassis into a very formidable weapon. Yes, a weapon car, yes. So look at some of these cars in the VS line. Some of them may look antiquated and kind of like, why would I want to build that? That's so old. However, you can transform a VS chassis into something that's a rock star on the track. Yes, if you know what you're doing. Pretty darn cool. So then we have here some wild mini cars, lots of wild mini cars. These cars typically have these giant tires on them. Yeah, very cool. They're typically very slow, so they're not for racing against other mini four-wheel drive cars. This is just like, you can play the wild mini races with these, like obstacle course races. And then here we have these realistic cars, you can say, and they're not really for racing against these either. I mean, you can race them, but you'll probably lose. Somebody will probably hit you from behind because they're going so fast and you're going so slow. And here's the animal racers right here. These have typically a 4-to-1 gear ratio, and they're made of ABS plastic and they're see-through. So they have like, it's nice to be able to get a pre-built model, but you don't want to race a pre-built model. If you get a pre-built model like this, you'll have to take it apart and basically just optimize it so that it becomes race-worthy. Because right out of the box, it seems like a 5-year-old pieced together the whole thing. And so you're going to get like not so high quality build when you're buying a pre-made kit. You have to basically take it apart and oil everything and make sure that, I've seen some parts that were not exactly cut off the sprues properly. So I'd have to recut the edges to make sure that everything was flush. And so you get some of that going on too. So yeah, it really does look like a 5-year-old built these so-called pre-built kits. It's a shame. So here, it looks like it's talking about maybe some classic models from yesteryear. That's pretty cool, yeah. And then, next page, I don't know what Oxus is. It looks like they're doing some sort of statistics, or maybe it's like, it's their racing system, it looks like. Maybe, okay, so I'm going to tell you that some racing events are moving towards a system where you're assigned a number, and that number sticks with you, for that car that is, for the rest of the race. And basically the system detects where you are on the racetrack based on a little GPS transmitter. So I don't know if this is talking about this. I don't think it's talking about that at all, but maybe it is. So the GPS transmitter basically tells you where you are on the track. And that's pretty darn cool, because there's no way that like a mishap can happen and you just don't know what happened. You could tell exactly if a car flipped over and went to another lane. You could tell who crossed the finish line first. You can tell the fastest speed of a car in a particular race. Pretty darn cool. All those statistics are so cool, and it's so nice that, like, that came from, I think that came from, I don't know, Slot Car Racing World or something like that. It's like one of these things where you take something from some other very imaginative, creative sport or hobby, and then you apply it to another sport or hobby, and it just works out so well with it. Yeah. So here we have animal racers, and they're all decked out with all stickers and stuff. I don't recommend putting too many stickers on your chassis because, you know, like you can add weight to a car by adding all these stickers on there. Unless you know how to judiciously, like, move the weight to the front or the rear by applying stickers, then I actually do not recommend decorating your cars like this. But they look fun, don't they? They look like little Barbie cars, like some some kids got like really crazy and just decided to kind of tattoo their cars all over the place with decals. Very cool. So here we go. Let's turn the page here. Oh wait, tune class and open class cars. What's going on here? Yes, these cars shaved down wheels now. For all my open class car friends, you guys know everything about open class, I'll bet. So this is more for the newbies and more for people who are like in tune class and they're thinking about moving to open class. So here, there are different wheel types for open class, and in general you want to pierce the wheel so that you get a longer shaft in, so you get a straighter path through the wheel, so that overall the car will run more smoothly with longer shafts that are straighter, that are pierced through the wheels. And you want to run with thinner tires so you get the body as close to the ground as possible with minimal clearance. You want to make sure that you still have that 1 millimeter clearance, but probably not much more, because you want to make sure that everything on your car is fine-tuned to the track that you're racing for. I think a lot of people, when they race their new fancy cars, they don't realize that they probably could have won if they had the proper brake settings. That's usually the case. So you can win with almost any car so long as you have proper brake settings on it. So long as the car is balanced and you do the drop tests from various angles, and you've seen my drop tests where it's not only dropping from like vertically, but also side dropping, front to back dropping, and also angle dropping. If your car survives all those tests with flying colors, then it's basically just brake settings that will help you secure a good placement in your race. So yeah, a lot of people, they set the wrong brake settings and then they end up flying off the track and other things like that. So that's a shame. But anyway, next page. Oh, lots of details here. I don't know what this says, but there's a lot of information on something, like this car right here, the Hurricane Sonic. Basically this car right here. So you see here, there's a polycarbonate shell part that's like covers up the front, and that looks really cool, right? But don't put it on there. If you put it on there, you've got a wiggle waggle piece right there. It'll just shake a little too much. You don't want that for your stability. You see, there's also a piece that you can cut out of the polycarbonate shell that you can glue, not glue, but double side tape on top of this part that covers up this screw right here. Don't install that one either. Just leave it like this. Single shell, put your decals on, and then you've got a fast car. Don't worry about all these extra little stupid parts. You don't need them. You don't need them at all. So as you see here, I didn't even bother putting these stickers on the sides. I mean, you can if you want. You can repaint this if you want. See, they painted it white. I left it clear. But adding paint also adds a little bit of weight to your car. And yeah, every gram counts. Every fraction of a gram counts. So you have to be mindful of that when you're racing box stock. Yeah. So I've been told by some people, like I've criticized racing events in the past about like, oh, well, this person didn't do this or did that or something like that. Like I wouldn't make a big deal out of it, but then people would say, oh, you gotta like relax, it's just box stock and stuff like that. But see, box stock in America, I don't know, maybe in other countries, box stock in America is a very competitive category. So in many cases, box stock category in the US can be just as competitive, if not more so, than tune class and open class. And there's a reason for that. It's because like, it's so accessible to everybody, right? So all you need is to pay $15 for a kit, and suddenly you're in the game, so to speak. So because of that, you have all these varying opinions on what should be proper and not, and everybody's trying to learn the rules, and everybody's trying to follow the rules to a T. But if somebody like does something that's not quite up to par with the rules, then they get called out for it, and it should be the case. But I don't think that it should be something that should be taken lightly. Somebody that's like changing the rules severely. So, for example, the one thing that I pointed out was one racer in a racing event decided to replace the wheels of his car with different wheels. And the different wheels are not the same types of wheels that would appear in the kit itself. And so I feel that's not fair. And I don't know about you, but I think that like the spirit of box stock is about using the parts that you received in the box. Now, if you buy another kit that's the same kit, and then you happen to want to use the best parts of both kits in their same exact kit, like let's say you get two mock frames, and you know that one has like crooked wheels or a crooked shaft, and you're trying to cherry pick the best parts from each of the two kits, or three or more, fine. That's still within the spirit of box stock because you are using the parts that would be included in the kit that you purchased. But if you're now taking parts from outside the kit and incorporating it into the kit that you're building, that's not right, right? So if you're using wide offset wheels instead of narrow wheels, if you're using a different tire size, if you're using even a different style of wheel, even a different color of wheel, now we're talking about something different. It's not really box stock anymore. So yeah, so just try to be mindful of that. Try to pay attention to what you're replacing on your box stock kit and try to replace it with exactly the same item. Not something that's a different color or a different size or a different type or something like that. Not something that you feel will just make your car look cooler. Like if you really wanted silver or gold wheels, then you spray paint your wheels to be silver or gold. Now, spray painting wheels, not always a good thing, right? Because variances of paint will cause things to be unstable, so you have to be very careful with that. Dyeing things, much better prospect right there. However, with certain kinds of dyes, chemicals, things like that, you might experience warping of the plastic, so you have to be careful with certain things like that. So here, tools, very cool. Description of this Hurricane Sonic. It looks like they're giving you the grand tour of how to make and optimize your Hurricane Sonic. Whoa, look at this. Double-sided tape to keep the wheels in place. Huh, I kind of figured that out myself and did that independently because I noticed that the tires wouldn't stay on the wheels very well. So I actually did use Tamiya double-sided tape for that purpose. Pretty cool. Now, is this a modification to the rules? Maybe, but it's still like, I think it's still within the spec of box stock because people use glues, for example. If they have something that's damaged on their front bumper, they use glue to reinforce things. And if you think about it, that's outside the box stock kit using glue. But it's like part of the rules say that you can repair things within reason, right? So long as you're not adding something like carbon reinforcement to your chassis, then you're just doing a simple repair with glue. That's supposed to be allowed because really you're supposed to be more relaxed about box stock. But that's what they say. But it's like I feel that you don't want to go outside the rules too much. So a lot of the things that I've shown you in the past in my videos, right? A lot of the cool things that you can do with, say, mock frames and the damper thing and stuff like that, it depends on the racing event that you race at, whether they'll accept things like that or not. And typically, once someone sees some unique genius thing that I've created on a YouTube video, then suddenly they'll say, "Oh no, that can't be accepted or allowed whatsoever because it's in the rules. You can't do that." And it's really not in the rules. I just kind of like if I saw that there was something like that in the rules, I would have just halted right there and not made the item. So I like to basically just look at the rules and say, okay, can I really do what I want to do within the scope of the rules? And if there is not a rule that says that I cannot do it, I'm going to do it. And if there's then an anti-Claritin rule that says, hey, you can't do that, then I know that, okay, great, okay, maybe that is in the spirit of box stock, that you can't do something like that, and that's fine. But yeah, apparently, if you've seen other box stock cars where there are loose tires, such as the Koala Racer with the clear tires, that's a perfect example. They actually give you double-sided tape in there to make sure that the wheels and the tires are like secure. So if you didn't use the double-sided tape, then the tires would just slip right off of the wheels, and then you'd have all these major problems, and all the kids would be crying then if they're racing their Koala Racers. That would be just terrible. So you want to make sure with double-sided tape that the tires stay on the wheels. So they're talking a lot about this Hurricane Sonic. It seems like everybody should buy one, right? So here, GUP data file 2024. It would be wonderful if I could like read some of this, but I can't. So we're going to just continue on here. Motor and gear. GUP, is that some sort of Grand Prix thing? Designation? I don't know. But here's a red Neo VQS. That looks pretty sweet. Yeah. And here, it looks to me like there are lap times, right? Like with a box stock motor, you're looking at a lap time of this of 35.28 seconds. Very cool. And then you go successively down the path here, and you'll see that the torque tune gives you 28.42, atomic tune gives you 28.11, rev tune gives you 29.83, light dash 30.11, hyper dash 26.37, power dash 26.38 seconds, and sprint dash 29.37 seconds. So the fastest motors, power dash, hyper dash. Yes, very cool. And then the next fastest ones, right here, atomic and torque. very interesting. Very interesting that this isn't faster than it is, the Sprint Dash. Very, very interesting. And yeah, well, we all kind of know that Light Dash is kind of like, well, you see it on the motor spec, right? That Light Dash is supposed to be a little more powerful than Atomic Tuned, but I really haven't seen that to be the case in actual practice. I've always seen Atomic Tune motors, at least the way people have broken them in, to be stronger, faster than Light Dash motors. It's just really weird to me. I know that this gives you a much smoother experience with your car, but it feels like you're putting a little fly propeller plane, a prop propeller plane in your car versus having like a bigger engine in your car. So yeah, Atomic Tune seems to be much more powerful to me than a Light Dash motor. But yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. Like if you've got a Light Dash motor that you feel is like so fast, and you've got some statistics to actually prove that'd be great. I would like to see them. So here, it looks like some optimization tips for all the different gear ratios here. We have the motors themselves and their requirements. We have here roller parts, all the different rollers that are available. Very cool. Plates, FRP, carbon, ball stabilizers, tires and wheels, the different size wheels, the different ones that are available right now, drive shaft and bearings. Some people like to drill holes in their gears and basically shove a bearing in them. Different shafts available too. So a lot of people are wondering, like, should I use reinforced shafts versus steel shafts? Steel shafts are the ones that are included in most kits, right? So the quick answer is yes, you should, but you have to make sure they're straight. And the big problem is a lot of reinforced shafts I've been seeing these days are no longer straight, and it's a shame that it's like that. You have to straighten the shaft yourself, and some people think it's a no big deal, but I feel that because you're paying so much money for these so-called better shafts, they should be straighter, and they are not, unfortunately. Something happened with the manufacturing processes of, I don't know, Japan, and they're making shafts that are just not straight anymore, and that's a shame. So the hollow shafts are the only ones that I really trust. They actually are super straight, and it's almost like Tamiya is kind of making you gravitate towards hollow shafts. It's kind of weird. They're not the most sturdy things in the world. Hollow shafts can bend, and I'm not going to say easily, but they can bend without much difficulty. So, stuff about brakes, stuff about slide and mass dampers. There's probably a lot of good tips in here, so make sure that you Google translate this, everyone, and see what kind of tips that can help you in a race. Spacers, grease, and oil. So, funny thing is, a lot of people are not talking about this oil. This oil here, or grease that is, molybdenum grease. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it. Molybdenum grease? I don't know how you pronounce it, but some people swear by this and they say this is what you should use on bearings and gears, plastic gears, and possibly use this over this. And I've always used this, so I'm slowly experimenting with this to see if what they say is true. So we'll keep an open mind on that, and let's see what happens with that. I totally despise this oil right here. I know some people have used it successfully, but I think this oil actually makes your gears slower. So there's something strange about it that doesn't quite make sense to me, why an oil would make gears slower. So I stopped using it altogether, and I basically just gave away my bearing oil because of that. Okay, here we go with clear bodies. We've got the polycarbonate shell bodies. Remember that you spray paint, you add color to the underside of the body. So you do not spray the top, you spray the bottom side, and it really doesn't matter if your paint job looks kind of junky underneath, because when you peel off the top, when you peel off that layer on the top of your polycarbonate body, it's going to look so nice. Who cares what it looks like on the bottom? It looks so nice on the top, and it looks super smooth, and you put your decals on. Now, I would rather not put decals on top of a polycarbonate body, because that just, to me, it mars the look of the whole body. It would be cool to have the stickers printed in a reverse order so that you could apply the stickers from the underside of the cowl so that the cowl remains smooth. That would be so cool. I don't know if they can do that in the future, but I think that would be the way to go, and that would be so cool if they could get that happening. Okay, I know that this is going to be something that they're going to be talking about somewhere. If you translate this, I know that this is probably talking about the fact that using rechargeable batteries, you don't want to amp it up too high for things like a power dash motor. Sometimes you can fry a motor by having your voltages way too high. So you gotta be careful with certain motors. Yeah, I've been known to amp up my batteries with power dash motors to great effect. And yeah, I could get like super duper speed with them, but it's not always a good idea if you want to maintain the longevity of a motor. So here we have how to build an MS flexible chassis, and I saw in a recent speed guide how to build one of these MS suspension chassis. So here they're describing the flexible chassis, how to build an MS flexible chassis. And as you see, they're cutting off this front part so that you can have, it looks like, yeah, you're cutting these parts off so that you can apply springs to the thing, and then you have a suspension in there. And basically all a suspension is shock absorption, so that when a car lands, you've got this spring, internal spring thing inside to absorb the shock of a landing. So you don't need as much mass dampers on your car once you have a suspension system built into the car. So that means your car could potentially be lighter than a car that does not have a suspension system. And so your car, theoretically being lighter and with the same power motor, can go faster than that heavier car. So here we see all the components that are needed to build this MS flexible chassis. And it's pretty cool that they finally published instructions for doing this yourself. Because before, this was like, I'm not going to say it's like hidden sensei knowledge, right? But it really was knowledge that was available to just a select few. And now, because it's published in this guide, it is available for all. And that's really, really cool. So yeah, kudos to Tamiya for basically documenting this, placing this out in the open so everybody has access to it. That's pretty darn cool. Oh, here's a tip that I didn't even consider here. They're teaching you how to apply the grease inside the suspension. I did not even know that you put that much grease in it. It's like almost unreal the amount of grease that you actually put on here. You're putting a layer on that's almost noticeable, right? So yeah, very interesting. And so if you have questions about which grease to use, it looks like this section right here is describing what the greases are good for. And that's pretty cool. And the differences between the springs. And that's pretty cool too. Yeah, lots of little considerations here. They did not even go into spacers, right? So they could go into shaving these gears and then applying spacers, but they did not. But they did get into some very fundamental things here. And that's always good, because it's always good to know the fundamentals first before you attempt to refine things and make your cars even faster with these refinements. So here we have examples of cars that I guess have won this Japan Cup race right here. Some really strange looking cars too. What's going on here? Very strange cars. Very, very strange cars. So I have to look at this again. This is weird. If this is working, and it's made of car catcher material in the front here, if this works, oh my god, what is going on here? Is this for any situation where if the car flips upside down, it still goes? Because that would be weird. That's so strange. I've never seen a car like this before. Most cars look like this, right? But this one, oh wait, look at this! This is what I've been talking about all this time. Car catcher material to be used as a body dampening system. So finally, somebody is doing what I'm doing with car catcher material. So cool. Look at this. And this is a winner right here. That's so cool. So cool. And yeah, there's more car catcher material here for things like this. And we already saw some car catcher material here on this. So a lot of people are experimenting with car catcher material now. That's pretty cool. And look at this. It looks like two daughters. They own these cars here. I guess they did well on the Japan Cup since their cars are prominently displayed here. Very cool. Very, very cool. A lot of these crazy designs. Yes. So, Chapter 3, Play. So we have some interviews with people, it looks like. Yes. Oh, yeah. I don't know what this is saying here, but it looks like there's some sort of a little class, right, where you can learn more about Tamiya Mini 4-wheel drive things and maybe other things. If all of you guys missed it, I actually taught a class on building box stock vehicles, and it was held at AAA Hobbies back in, I believe, May of this year. And the class in its entirety is recorded, and it's actually on my website. So you can actually watch the video of that class I taught, so you can get all the details there. But there's also a video that I made on how to optimize your box stock cars, so that in conjunction with my class notes should give you much of what you need, like sensei level knowledge to optimizing your box stock car. Pretty darn cool. So a lot of you might be wondering, like, oh, who is this girl? What does she know about mini four-wheel drive cars? Is she just a YouTube star, or does she actually know stuff? Well, I've been a sensei in other things for years before I ever encountered a Tamiya mini four-wheel drive sensei. And let me tell you, I've met a lot of people who are very, very knowledgeable about mini four-wheel drive cars, people who call themselves senseis and stuff. And I will say that there are senseis in so many different things. There are senseis in computer science, which I was long, long ago, in philosophy, which I was long, long time ago. I'm a yoga sensei to a lot of people. Let's say thousands of people, but I don't boast about those things. Like, I don't go up and tell people that, oh, I'm a sensei, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you don't have to. People will kind of see it, that you're an expert in something, right? Like, you don't have to boast about it to basically, like, get people to acknowledge that you're a sensei. Like, if you just go about your business on a day-to-day basis and just, like, practice what you preach and just teach people things and don't expect anything from anybody, I think that's a true sensei. I think that that is, like, something to be admired. Like, basically, you want to keep a humility about yourself and not try to brag or boast about any accomplishments that you've made. Because a sensei doesn't do that. A sensei is wise enough to actually know that, you know, like, I've been doing this for a long time. I just know certain things, and if you want to learn from me, then great, but don't force anybody to be a certain way. It's not really a good thing. Over time, you just learn a lot of things as a sensei, right? And whatever field you are a sensei of, you learn these things and you pass them on to people. You teach people things. You don't expect anything of them. And I think that that's a very valuable lesson for anybody who considers him or herself to be a sensei, to try to have humility about every situation and try to be a helpful person overall. Yes. So, yeah, it's really, really cool that a lot of people like to teach other people things, but don't expect anything in return. Just, oh, look at that! There it is! That's what I'm talking about, the side brake. And I think this is the guy that I saw on YouTube. And so, yeah, he's got this side brake thing. And I've got one just like it. I've got my own design. Yeah. And mine actually has reinforcement on here. So this prevents these two screws here from bending. So it's a reinforcement that I had to custom hand make myself. And the spring thing allows me to still have, like, a nice suspension push right here. Yeah. That way it doesn't lock in place. If you try to do this without the spring, it'll lock in place. So yeah, these are kinds of things that, like, I know as a physics person, right? I know as an engineering person. And I'm not going to boast about it. I'm not going to say that, hey, I've got this special knowledge. No, these are things that, you know, like, you learn over time. And then you basically, oh, wow, lots of other people have this same kind of thing too. And yeah, you share this knowledge with the world and you put it up on YouTube videos. Yep. And, you know, like, if you've got an issue with any of my videos, if you think that something is wrong in my videos, just tell me, right? You don't have to criticize what I say or do behind my back. There's no reason for that. So, yeah, we're all here to learn as much as we can about this hobby. And this hobby is something that can help a lot of kids with their science, technology, engineering, yeah, math skills. Such a cool hobby. And you want to make sure that you're in this hobby for the right reasons, that you are trying to help people, right? That's what this is all about. I think ultimately that's what this is all about. So yeah, everybody, if you like this video, please slam the like button, subscribe to my channel. You'll see more videos just like this one. Until next time, everybody, see you. Bye.